Hello, it's Frank Klesitz with Vyral Marketing, the co-host of a brand new Hangout series we're looking to start called the Marketing Automation Hangout. I'm here with my friend Dobbin Buck with Get You Wired, who's really a guru when it comes to actually implementing Infusionsoft. I don't know much about implementing Infusionsoft. I know the benefits behind it, but this guy Dobbin knows how to take whatever you need done, whatever result you need, and automate that in the back end of Infusionsoft, which is our marketing automation product of choice today. And our guest here is Greg Harrelson, who's a top real estate broker in the Myrtle Beach area. And he has taken Infusionsoft to probably the highest level in the entire real estate industry of anything that I've seen as far as tags and drip campaigns and conversion sequences to help him as well as the agents that work for him. I believe he's up to about 60 agents now, 60 salespeople, to help get them to convert more leads and to do more deals and increase referral and repeat business. And he comes from a very strong prospecting background to get new business, but has also complemented this with some incredible marketing. And the whole idea behind these Hangouts is they're completely educational. And it's a time for us to dive deep into the marketing automation, how things work, what are the tags, what are the sequences, what are they saying, so you can probably take some of these things and model them in your business, even no matter what industry you're in. So if you're in real estate, you're in for a special treat today. If you're not in real estate, you could probably take a lot of what you're learning today to apply to your business. So if you like this Hangout and you want to get more of them, we're going to be building out the marketingautomationhangout.com. That will be up shortly. But until then, you can definitely just follow us right here on our Google Plus page, where we're going to have all the different Hangouts being published here on the Marketing Automation Hangout Google Plus page, however you see it here on the page. So let's go ahead and get started. So Dobbin, I just want to say, let's just say hi to you so everyone sees who you are.
Hey there. Glad to be here. Thanks for the introduction, Frank, and excited to have Greg on board as well tonight. I've been working closely with Greg for several years now, and an interesting byproduct of the job that I have with helping to people automate their businesses. I'm fortunate to be able to work with a lot of top producers in a number of different verticals, and what Greg probably doesn't realize is that I've learned more from him, as him being a client of mine, than probably he's learned from me. So I should actually be paying him, but it's been a wonderful and continues to be a wonderful experience, and we've had a lot of great automation based around his company and really leveraging Infusionsoft to the maximum. So glad to have you, Greg.
Yeah, good. Well, hey, I appreciate that, and let's start sharing and see how we can help some people.
Yeah, so what I want to hear, Greg, is let's just start with kind of the story to get involved with the marketing automation software and why you needed it. And we're just going to kind of take it through the whole hour today of the story of you building it out and what you have in there, really. So why don't you take us back to when you decided to start even asking for email addresses, when you decided you needed some type of marketing automation software?
You know, I tell you, and you'll get a kick out of this because the idea really came from a Tony Robbins seminar, the Business Mastery course that we're going to be attending in August. I was in that Business Mastery course years ago, and one thing that became very clear is Tony Robbins as well as Chet Holmes. It was actually Chet Holmes that really brought up the idea. He basically shared with, if you're going to scale and grow your business, scale it and grow it at a very, very fast pace, you're going to have to do it by creating audiences. And so audiences meant, at that point in time, it was email databases. And so your database becomes an audience. Email became the method of delivering a message to that audience. And and through the teachings, he kept saying, how if somebody has a big enough database, they can actually speak to more people and get their message across to more people involved in real estate than any other media, like, say, your local TV or your local newspapers. If you have a very big database, say you have a database of 50,000 people, and you want to send them a message on real estate, and you have all their emails, there's more people that'll probably read that message, or at least that message will be delivered to more people than it would have been delivered to in any of those other sources. And that started, kind of getting my attention. It says, well, gosh, how in the world could you do any better branding than being able to go right to your target audience and give them the exact message that you want? So that's when I started collecting emails and said, I've got to get into the database marketing business. That's
Okay.
where it really all started.
So you started. How did you get the emails in the first place to bring them into Infusionsoft?
Well, it's through prospecting. I mean, I've got a lead generation background, and of course, I've done prospecting, and whether it be calling expireds, FISBOs, cold calls, centers of influence, past customers, all the various sources that you can call. I would just give them a call, and by the end of the call, if it didn't result in an appointment, I would ask them for their email and for their permission to send them some newsletters on a monthly basis. And people started saying, here's my email, and one at a time I started putting them into my database. Ended up being Infusionsoft.
And you've been selling real estate for how many years?
About 21 years.
And then when did you decide to start collecting emails and building a
This has
database
probably
like that?
probably 9 years ago when I started focusing on building a database. And the key is I started building a database before I ever really had any clue as to what I was going to do with the database. They convinced me that I needed to have a database, so I really was very deliberate about building it. And then I think I started off with like a results mail or a vertical response type of account, and I just started sending a newsletter once a month. That's how it all started, and then it just evolved from there.
So when you got Infusionsoft, you started segmenting all of your audiences very specifically to get the right message to the right person.
Mm-hmm.
Could you maybe share some of the segmentation strategies to move beyond just from getting a bunch of emails and sending in one message to how you segmented them correctly?
Yeah. So each email or each person could be unique. So maybe somebody owns a house in a community, and let's just name a community. It's the Myrtle Beach Vistas. So they own a community. Maybe it's a house, and it's named Myrtle Beach Vistas, and it's in a waterway community. So there would be 3 tags right there. It would be waterway community as a location. It would be the name of the community, Myrtle Beach Vistas, and it would be a residential home. So those would be 3 different tags. Now, I could put a 4th tag on there if it was in a waterway community and it was direct on the waterway. So now direct on the waterway is another tag. So I started early on building the databases by segmenting and tagging them all the way to the features of their property. So later on in the event that I ever had a buyer that wanted a waterway home in a waterway home in Myrtle Beach, then I could go right to the database and pull everyone that has waterway homes, and may have gotten various results from various communities, but they would all be on the waterway. Or I could go and pull them all by all people that have homes or all people that have a Myrtle Beach Vista home. So, that was the purpose of the tagging in the beginning. So I have tags in there for, were they a for sale person? Are they underwater? So are they potentially a short sale? All the different things that we can think about a person or their property, I will tag them for.
So how many tags do you have in the system now?
Dobbin, how many tags? I mean, it's got to be over, I don't know. It's over, I don't know, a couple thousand. I really don't know.
It is exactly 2,552 tags that you have in the system to segment your list.
Yeah.
And then how many emails does he have in his database since you started asking for emails 9 years ago?
Well, I don't have the exact number on that, but I could approximate that there must be well over 1,500 emails in the system.
Okay.
1,500. Well, 1,500 might be in one campaign. There's probably over 100, over 90,000 to 100 total.
I'm sorry. As far as you said emails, I thought you meant specific written emails. If you're talking about contacts, if you're talking about contacts, we're over 200,000.
So there's 200,000 emails in his database, and you have over 1,500 different email content templates, if you will.
There's a lot of campaigns in the system, in Greg's system, a lot, and they're all packed full of content.
Okay.
So the point here, and I think this is very important, and I left this out. One of the things that I was taught early on is, okay, Yes, build a database, but what was the point of the database? Like what was the essence of your message? And that was critical because it wasn't just building a database and doing e-blast. That's not what I was convinced to do. It was build a database and speak differently to your audience than everyone else does. In other words, try to speak to your audience, of course, through email. Try to speak to them as if you're speaking to them as an individual versus speaking to them as a group of like a blast. And that's the significance here, I think, of our success, is that with tagging, I'm able to create emails and campaigns that talk specifically to what they have. So the experience from the consumer's perspective is, oh, he said that, he said this about the market for homes in Myrtle Beach on the waterway, which is exactly what they have, versus me doing a more blanketed email talking about homes in general. So the more I could dissect the list, then I could speak to that list and as if I'm speaking to them as an individual. So one size fit all does not work. You have to you have to communicate one-on-one, and that's the importance of tagging. It helps me communicate more on a one-on-one basis, even though I might be communicating one-on-one to 500 people at the same time, but it doesn't feel like they just got a blast. It feels like I singled them out, and that was very important. So I wanted to add that. You want to be an educator, and you want to deliver value, and you have to have tagging done properly in order to push that experience on the consumer.
Well, there's no way that, with all these emails, because you're leveraging the email getting from your salespeople, because they're getting emails too when they're making their calls.
Yeah, a big bulk of those emails too are from Get You Wired, right? So I've got my buyer database now automatically integrates with Infusionsoft. So our emails, that we're collecting, that 200,000 includes
the passive ones from online.
The passive ones coming from online, which could be 300, 400 a week just from that.
Wow.
Coming in actively now.
So when these are tagged, who's entering, at least the emails that are coming through prospecting over the phones, how do these get into Infusionsoft and who tags them up? It doesn't take a lot of time from your salespeople to do this?
It takes, I would say it takes some time from the salespeople, but we have to look at return on time. So, if we're trying to get out of doing any work, then we can do that by just not putting emails in the database. But if we're looking at growing a database and anticipating that we're going to get a good return on that investment of time, then it's a small little price to pay for the benefits later on down the road. So what Dobbin did is he helped us create some, I guess we would call it a landing page, and each agent can go to a landing page and they can enter their information. They can enter the client, the lead, into this little page, and then there's a drop down for who to assign the lead to, which would be their name, and another drop down for how you want it to be tagged. So they just click their name, they tag it this, and then boom, it automatically goes into the Infusionsoft account and kicks off a campaign. So we could have multiple users taking credit for that particular lead, but I don't have to have one centralized staff to do all that data entry.
And it also keeps your salespeople out of the CRM and slowing them down.
Yeah, it does. It also keeps them out of the CRM, and they're going to look at I don't even get in the CRM, so it's not that I just want to lock them out. I'm even locked out. I don't know my own password.
Dobbin, do you have an example of that form by chance that you can share?
While
we're chatting here, maybe you can find that form that
sure.
when his team gets a lead over the phone, they put that into the form with the drop down, and depending how they're tagged, it fires off that specific campaign. That's pretty interesting to me. So let's talk about these campaigns, Greg. So, I mean, how many different campaigns do you have? And a campaign is a fancy word of saying a follow-up sequence, a series of emails that trip out to that very specific audience. How many different campaigns of different content do you have?
I'm going to guess. I don't know the number, and Dobbin might know it a little bit better than I do, but I bet you there's 25 or 30 campaigns in there, and some of these campaigns are really small. I mean, extremely small. they could be, just 2 to 3 emails, that's kicked off. But, that would be like a just sold campaign. So I might have a just sold campaign where it's only got maybe 2 emails attached to it. It's an email that we put in, and so I'll have a campaign where once it's a person's name is activated, or let's see, let me back up. Let's just say I want to send a just sold to everybody that's in Myrtle Beach Vista's community. Then all we have to do is go to Infusionsoft. My staff member would go and just send this email, the just sold email, and then they would merge the Myrtle Beach Vistas community, and it goes off and it sends off. So the email is already in there, and it'll merge. It's a just sold email, and then it'll merge everybody's name that is in that one community into that email, and then goes out to everybody in that community. And then it asks them a question. It tells them about the sold, and it says if they would like an updated CMA on their property, then it says click here and say yes or say no. I'm not sure exactly what it says, but when they click that, then a pop-up comes up and says put in your address and we'll go ahead and get a CMA for you. And then once they put in that address, then that triggers one of my agents to give them a call so they can ask them some additional information so they can finish a CMA, because we may not have asked them how many bedrooms they had. So they may have put their address in, we know that, but we don't know their square foot, we don't know their bedrooms, and the fact that I don't know that information gives us a reason to make the call. So that's only a 2 email campaign, but the return on that campaign it's off the charts. It's off the charts.
How many of those are you sending out a month? Because you're selling a lot of houses.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it set up that basically just about every sold that we have every sold that we have, it's just automatically that my staff is doing that. Oh, so how many is that? I don't know, but I mean, if we sell
how many
over 100 properties, 120 properties a month, it's probably at least going out to half of those.
And then it's just automatically generating CMA calls for your agents because the automation built in.
Correct. Yeah, it's sending an alert to my agent, telling my agent that they need that. When the alert comes in, it says, there's a little logo. It says call now. This person, their name, their telephone number. This is what they're tagged. They actually just requested a CMA for this particular property. So my agent has all that coming to them from Infusionsoft as an alert with all that information, and they can just go ahead and call them then.
Dobbin, is there some way we can see that campaign and how that looks inside his Infusionsoft backend?
Well, I have pulled up right now, Frank, the form that you were asking me about. So how we're entering in all of the data and how we're segmenting it to begin with. So I'll pull that up.
So this is the form that all of your salespeople, Greg, pull up on their computer when they're making calls and they get a lead. They put it in here, assign it to themselves, and then the drips start.
So
yes, and then they can tag. So they can tag their the property.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, this is entering basically contact data, but this is where it gets really interesting. So we have lead sources here, so we have a variety of different lead sources that they can choose. Now here's where things get really interesting. So Greg, beyond any other real estate broker professional that I've worked with, has the most segments based on the communities that he's working in. I mean, it's literally like 1,500 subsections of his market that he has broken down, that he segments by property owners, and he has it broken into buildings and communities. Of course, buildings is referencing condos in the Myrtle Beach area. Now, the logic in Infusionsoft that it would take to just tag all of these accordingly from the breakdowns and the campaigns, we would need to have campaigns with thousands of different sequences to apply these tags. So we tried that at first, and it was just overburdening Infusionsoft. So we wrote a little API, an API around this to where it sends it out of Infusionsoft from this form and then applies the market segmentation tags for how Greg segments the properties and communities in his area, but he covers everything. I mean, he really niches down. And also he does this on his Real Geek site. So he probably has more pages on his Real Geek site than anybody that I've ever seen in the history of Real Geek's websites. He has it just niched down to infinite amounts of communities within the Myrtle Beach area. So this is a very important area here that the people entering in data, particularly on seller leads, can narrow them down and pre-segment them. And then ultimately we have where the agents will select their names, person type, what type of person, company name. If a telemarketer is entering, they enter their property types, seller, buyer, rental, prospect types, and then ultimately we have checkboxes down at the very bottom to auto-trigger campaigns. So we can auto-trigger them into a number of the Infusionsoft campaigns and begin their path down the automation prospecting. So it's really straightforward, but what this form allows is for a great deal of segmentation, and it's proved to be, a wonderful tool.
That's incredible, Dobbin. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of people's eyes lit up when they saw how easy that is and how all that stuff is triggered on the back end. I'll keep asking Greg some more questions about this.
I don't even know what the heck he just said, but thanks, Dobbin, for hooking that all up.
No, it's good, man. I'm like right in between where I understood enough of it.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and find Dobbin, like just a campaign or something so people can see like what happens when that's entered, so they can kind of see that on the back end in Infusionsoft.
Okay.
So this is great, Greg. So let's talk about just how you get the emails, and obviously your prospectors get the emails, put it into the form, and then you have a Real Geek site, which is basically a site that generates leads of people who want to find homes, and you probably have a huge number of custom content that shows up in search engines when people look for search for homes, that they enter their information to save their home search, and that pushes right into the form too. So they come in both ways, right?
Yeah.
And let's talk about the content. Who wrote all this, and who came up with all of these, say, 1,500 email templates to send to all these different audiences?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I pretty much wrote just about all of it, and I've got a partner in my office, a great real estate agent, Brendan Payne. I actually had him, help me. It became a little bit overwhelming, but for the most part, I wrote just about all of it, and he helped me, finish a lot of it. But every bit of it was organically, and originated right out of my office, under my fingertips, pretty much.
That's
the key is again, in order to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, which was I didn't want to present myself as communicating from a one-size-fits-all platform, then it had to be custom written. There had to be thought. So, when it comes to creating a campaign, I had to imagine, let's say a FSBO campaign. I had to imagine all the years that I've called for sale by owners myself. What were all the conversations I had? What were all the different objections that they had? The first time that I called them, what were they like? Versus the 8th time that I called them, how did the conversation change on call number 8 versus call number 1? So I had to kind of think through really working the business and then really imagine what would be the appropriate conversation at that stage of our relationship. That's what was critical. I mean, it wasn't just, I need 20 things to be able to tell a for sale by owner. No, that would be easy. 5 ways to sell your property on your own, 3 reasons why you need a realtor. There's none of that stuff in the campaigns. I'm more thinking about, at week 4, are they starting to get discouraged? That's the week that they start to get discouraged. So what's the proper thing to say to somebody at the same time that I know, statistically speaking, for sale by owners are starting to get discouraged? I could say the same thing as I know what they're doing on Friday. A for sale by owner's cleaning their house, getting excited about the open house they're going to have on Saturday. And guess what I know on Monday? I know on Monday they didn't get the property sold and they're pissed off because they just spent all the time cleaning their house. So the best thing to ask them on Monday is, hey, did you get your property sold? And then they're going to say, no, I didn't. So then the follow-up to that would be something about the other properties that sold, and unfortunately, because theirs may not have been exposed to a broad enough audience, one of the buyers that may have bought theirs potentially bought another one in the community. So I would know just on a Monday that would be a conversation I could have. I wouldn't have that, did you get your home sold on Friday? Because on Friday, of course they didn't. They're not even really showing it until tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. So if you've been in the business long enough, you know how these people are thinking. You should know what they're experiencing at different times within, the total, lifeline of this transaction. And I wanted to fit my communication with where they likely were. And I didn't know anybody that, I don't even know how I'd ask anybody to do that job. I just started writing.
That's incredible. How long have you been selling real estate, Greg?
21, maybe 22 years, but over 20 years.
So tens of thousands of conversations with FSBOs went into that, to write that.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know between myself and my team, I calculated this with Tony DeCello. I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, him and I were trying to figure out how many contacts do we think we've made, and it was well over 1 million.
Wow. Okay.
That wouldn't be me just by myself, but me and all the teams and people in my offices. We probably have made well over 1 million contacts. So we've had a lot of conversations. I hope that I know a little bit about what people are thinking.
So I would assume you just wrote all this like in a Word document saying day 1, send this, day 2, send this, or you thought of the cadence because it matched up to the problems and the needs. If you thought of the cadence and the messaging, then you sent it over to Dobbin, and he got it all into Infusionsoft and solid it up so it would drip out.
Correct. Yeah, I wrote it all in a Word document, and then if there was a link, then I would, if I wanted him to link it to somewhere, then I would say, this is the link, this is the name of the link, this is where the link needs to be directed, and here's the content that is going to show up whenever they go to that link. Or here's the email, here's the, when they do this, then I want this email to be sent. So I'd have to kind of put some instructions. There was a way that we've kind of figured out how to communicate with each other where I can write it in a way that he can easily program it.
They're really well-polished scripts that I receive from Greg. So that's always a pleasure when working with a client that literally hands me on a silver platter something that I can understand and implement. And we have a little bit of going back and forth. Sometimes there might be some technical aspects to things, but we move through it pretty fast. Would it be of interest for me to perhaps, we talked about some of the content, to share some examples? So you asked earlier, how many campaigns are in the system, and it would be exhaustive to say them all, but maybe I have a short list here that I'd be happy to share to give the people online of what's in Greg's system. So we ascertained that there were 2,552 tags for segmenting, but in campaigns, here's a few that we have. We have an agent referral campaign, a active seller campaign, an agent recruitment campaign, 24-month buyer campaign, a general seller campaign, FSBO campaign that Greg was just talking about, expired campaign, short sell campaign, rentbo campaign, an adopt a buyer campaign, a center of influence past client campaign, a Dave Ramsey ELP campaign, a Z-buyer campaign, a Zillow specific campaign. We have a couple of different versions of just sold campaigns for both residential and condos. They have different language in them. And also there are agent-specific versions of those campaigns. We have a SLD newsletter, which is the general seller newsletter that goes out to the entire database. And one thing that's really cool about that is within Infusionsoft, we've managed to make it to where when this newsletter goes out, based on which agent owns that prospect or that client, it ultimately pulls in their own header, their own information, and Infusionsoft itself didn't allow us to do that natively, so we figured out a way. Greg's team was literally making something like 40 different newsletter templates that was taking them days to put together, and literally one for each different agent, if you can imagine that. And so we figured out a way for his team to make one newsletter, and we just automatically, through the API, pull in the proper images and proper everything that we need for those newsletters. So that saved a lot of time. above and beyond that, a lot of these campaigns are integrated also with calculators that we've developed. So net to seller calculators.
Do you have an example you can pull up of this? I think people just want to see
oh, let me.
I want to see it.
Yeah. And one more thing, and this is what I think is really cool. So we've been talking about prospecting stuff that Greg has in there, but he also has, and this is the only one that I've made in real estate, other than a friend of Greg's, Jeff Quinton, that copied his, is a 60-day agent training solution that we did through Infusionsoft in Customer Hub that all new onboards have to go through when they first come to work for Greg, and I believe that that's been highly successful as well.
Oh yeah, that one's huge. We use it religiously.
Great. Yeah, I have an example of, let me see, I'll share.
Yeah, just show me what a campaign looks like. Like if I've never been in the back end of Infusionsoft, you know, what does this look like? I want to see the emails of some of those timers.
So, sure, so here we go. Here is a, what I would consider to be probably one of Greg's most popular campaigns. So there is currently, just to give you an indication, this campaign that I'm showing, I hope I don't mess it up because Greg has over 20,000 people actively in this specific campaign at this moment. So if I mess it up, Greg's going to get really incensed with me, but I won't do that. So a neat thing is, so this is for buyers that are coming in. So Greg, from his Real Geek site, and correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, gets around 400 buyer leads organically a week, okay? So
that's correct, yeah.
We have to put them somewhere. He has a lot of agents, but there certainly just isn't enough manpower between, you know, all the expired calls, FSBO calls, and lead gen that they're doing on a daily basis to even keep up with all of these leads that are coming in. So we have a 24-month long-term buyer campaign that we put people in. And ultimately they come through, and I won't go through the minutia of this campaign, but I will get into the main email sequence here that we have 2 emails with questionnaires, and we try and ascertain additional information here in a questionnaire from them. But if they don't answer that, they pass right through into the buyer lead sequence, which houses 2 years worth of emails. Now, you'll see a lot of stuff here, and maybe I can bounce out a little bit. There's all of these things right here, and what these represent is inside of the campaigns there are a bunch of PDFs and information. Every email has a link on it. So this is how we track consumption of Greg's content, is because he has short, compelling content that drives people to take action and to take a look at additional information. So whenever they're clicking on anything, boom, it immediately tells the agent, it sends the agent a message, tells them not only that this prospect is clicking within the campaign, but what they click to see. So if you can imagine, right in front of you as an agent, you get this information, you know what they just clicked through, you know what their interest is, and so ultimately you can reach out and connect with them and begin that conversation. Now inside of this primary sequence here is a mother load, and I'll move it around a little bit.
This is incredible.
Different emails from day 2 to...
So Greg, you wrote all these, Greg?
I wrote every bit of it.
To day 715. So all of this is timed, all of this has been tested. So ultimately the frequencies, the timing of the delivery, and all these are all based on years of experimentation by Greg within the system and by us to ascertain, you know, what are the best delivery dates, where do we stall, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, the thing about it is, particularly with buyer leads, so this is what we know. We know that fresh leads coming in from the internet, that maybe on a good day, 4 to 5% of them have any interest whatsoever in speaking with a real estate professional. It's all waiting game. All the real money is in the 96% of them that nobody's hitting up. Everybody's going after the low-hanging fruit, cherry-picking the fresh leads coming in. The real money is here. It's at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, a year and a half.
Those buyer leads are clicking. The agent gets notified that they're consuming the content because they're clicking the links, and that triggers a a phone call follow-up with an agent.
Exactly. And this is the thing. They aren't clicking all the way through this whole experience. Many times we see there's a period of dormancy from when they first come in and done a search on the search site to where all of a sudden they start clicking again. We know that when they're clicking through that they have interest in what's going on, that they have interest in buyer-based information. So it's the prime time to reach them, and I assure you the conversion rate to appointment from inside the campaign is way higher than what they are coming in fresh as a lead off the internet.
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And so let me throw this one term that some of us have talked about. I know Dobbin and I talk about all the time. You know, when we talk about automation and systems, a lot of people are trying to find the system that's going to convert for them. And listen, there are systems out there, I'm sure, that'll convert a deal for you here and there. But the reality is I don't look at this as a conversion system. I look at this as an identification system. So, like he says, you know, the lead comes in, they go into the, into this campaign, and they go dormant for a year. But then all of a sudden, you know, on month 14, they start engaging. They open up an email, they watch a video, they look at a PDF about, purchasing real estate, whatever they click on, and then all of a sudden now we get an alert that says, hey, this person is actively reading, engaging, consuming your content. So we don't call that a conversion, obviously, but what we do is we say, well, we just identified somebody who is reading our newspaper. They're consuming our product, because our product is information. So now that we know they're consuming our product, then we're going to go out and call them. And that's where the conversion comes from. The conversion still comes from the call. But through automation, it helped us identify who to call and what list of people are going to be the highest probability of converting. And that's what this, I want to say that out there because, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not just this miracle system that just pretty much deposits money into your bank account. I mean, I feel like it is that way, but it does require us acting upon the alerts and the triggers that we have set up in the system.
That's great. Probably the question in everyone's mind at this point is, Joey asked the question, on top of the original cost to design Greg's campaigns, what would Greg guess his annual budget is to get you wired to manage and program the campaigns in this relationship?
Easy now.
Well, how does someone go about doing all this and the cost to be able to implement something like this? Like for
I bet you. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. If we were to, I've done so many projects with Get You Wired, the way beyond Infusionsoft. I've got him working on 3 different companies right now that have nothing to do with even Infusionsoft or in even my real estate companies. So it'd probably be hard to figure out exactly, what it would take. I know what I had to spend. And for all those that are buying my content or signing up through Dobbin, what they have to spend is totally different. I bet you I've got a good $50,000 just on this one application. I'm assuming that's the case. And of course, because I've laid out the path, cut all the trees, and laid the nice path down, everyone else is coming in and getting off on the cheap. They're signing up, getting all the content for free, and which is perfectly fine for me. But I bet you I've got a good $40,000 to $50,000 just in this setup here. Keep in mind, one of the things that Get You Wired did is at some point I knew I was going down a path of 100% full commitment, so I did have one of my staff members go get certified with Infusionsoft, and she is also able to do a lot of these things in house, and I take all the higher level stuff to Get You Wired.
And for anyone who's interested, the URL below your name there, Greg, is Greg actually takes this system and has the ability to, if you buy it through him through Infusionsoft, you get all that content. Is that right, Greg?
Yeah, they get the, I think it's 9 campaigns, which are, all the campaigns that are pretty much universal for realtors across the country. You get all those campaigns for free.
That's great. So let's talk about other ways that you plan on using Infusionsoft or other little things we haven't talked about so far that have been very helpful to you. There's more.
Well, there's always more. Anything in mind? Like I'm not sure exactly what your
Are you
thought is.
are you doing any texting stuff? Does it trigger any voicemail automation? Does it trigger any letters going out? Because email is just one piece of Infusionsoft.
Yeah, so
Anything else
we've
that's
already
triggering?
Yeah, we've already integrated SMS, text messaging. So that's also, part of the sequences that are out there. There's already some integration with texting in there. I'm not using voice broadcasting. I'm not using. You can use send out cards and things like that. I'm not doing that, even though there are plenty of people doing it, and I'm sure Dobbin has probably integrated that for others. But besides emails and the texting, those are really the two forms of communication that I have integrated in Infusionsoft. The most important thing is because we can see, what they're clicking on. We know that they actually just opened that one PDF. The most important thing is the phone call, and that's where the real conversion's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, even though it looks to be very complicated, this doesn't seem that complicated to me because all I was doing is just, creating a campaign based on a natural conversation I'd have with a buyer or seller. But I'm not trying to overcomplicate this and build on too many bells and whistles that I have to pay attention to. I want them to get quality content content that has value. I want to see when they're consuming it, and then I want to call them.
Now, I think what's interesting in the way that you're using this is it's beyond just for yourself being your own agent.
Mm-hmm.
You have 60 agents, or how many agents were in the drop-down box now that he has on there, Dobbin, that are using Infusionsoft? Is all 60, Greg?
I mean, there's probably at least 50 users. I'm sure I have at least 50 users.
There's 50 users on there.
Yes.
What's really fascinating is that it's not just these 50 agents are submitting emails and then all of the communication comes from Greg Harrelson.
No, none of it does. So
Go
deeper
into that.
Okay, so let's just say I've got 50 users in it, but let's just say you had a team. So if you have a team and you got five, a couple buyers agents, a couple listing agents, whatever, you got 5 people on your team, I've got 50 users. So let's just say there was 5 users. Then if one of your team members' name was John Doe, and John Doe was to get an email address and put it in that little form that Dobbin showed you earlier, and put the customer's name and tag them in that system, then whenever emails go out from the Infusionsoft system, they're going out branded as your team member or your agent's name, not branded in my name. So, out of those buyers, he said there was 20,000 people, buyers in that active buyer campaign. Well, those 20,000 people is a summation of probably 20 different buyers agents. And so these emails are being fired out every day to various people within that database. And I mean, there could be 20 different versions of the same email going to 20 different databases every single day. So the value of that is the email that's going out, it's consistent with the same agent that they're working with. It's not Greg Harrelson's name being branded all over the place. It's my agent's name that's being branded all over the place. So when they call them, they can talk about the email that the consumer just got. That's really critical, I believe. And instead of everyone having 20 different databases, let's pull it all into one centralized database. Everyone still has their individual database within a master account, but now we can all leverage the content together instead of having to have everybody has their own system, which would be way too much money.
So many brokers and so many owners need exactly that.
Sure.
Because that's the challenge. You want to get all your agents, you want to get all your salespeople to get email addresses and bring them into a system, but then it comes from the company or it comes from the rainmaker. And how do you manage all those separate systems to have their content going on? What a great value proposition for your agents. They join you, they get email addresses, and content from them magically goes out. And when someone clicks a link, I'm sure they get a notification from the emails.
Yeah. So there was 3 things that kind of struck my mind. I'm writing them down. There's 3 things that was in my mind that caused me to talk to Dobbin about my needs for this type of system, which is we all use, we have one account, they're all within, you've got 50 users in the same account, and they all are going to be personally branded. The reason is the three things that I know are important about using a system like this is, number one, is the essence of the communication. Are you communicating to educate and deliver value, or are you communicating to client to get a commission check? So I had no faith that any group of agents, if you put 10 agents together, 20 agents together, or 3, and tell them to send an email, they're all going to send a totally different email. Some are going to be very salesy, some are not going to be salesy at all, some's going to be a blend. So I could never have consistency in the message if I was trying to convince or trying to coach 50 agents to send emails to their databases. So number one, we had to manage the message and make sure the message was exactly the way we wanted it across the board for the whole company. So the second reason that I said we've got to take this on ourselves is because I know agents, even if they were able to write good emails, I don't believe that they have the experience to understand the frequency that these emails need to go out. What is the actual frequency? Do they go out once a month? Do they go out every day? Do they go out, how long should you wait before this email goes out after that email? So they would have had to figure out the frequency. What's the proper frequency? That's probably took me just as long to figure that out as it did to write the content, because it was easy for me to think of the conversation, but to really take time to figure out what's the proper frequency. So I said, there's no way an agent's going to get this, or 20 agents in my office are not all going to get this right. So I can, if I have one system, I can get it right, and all 20 people or 50 people can benefit. And then the third one is, even if they did get the essence and wrote the content right, and they did figure out the frequency correct, then I know agents, they're like, one day they're busy and one day they have nothing to do. So, the key is they're really busy. Guess what they're not going to do? They're going to forget to send the newsletter out at the critical time that it's supposed to be sent out, which would be in the beginning of the month or the middle of the month. So then what will happen is they won't be consistent on sending content out. So it comes down to the content. The message has got to be consistent. It's got to be value driven. You've got to have the proper frequency, and you've got to be consistent. And I just didn't think coaching realtors, as long as I didn't have a lot of confidence that a group of realtors could all get that right. They could all do it in their own version, but I thought we could optimize it if we had one person focusing on that. And that's where this system was developed.
That's incredible. And that's what a broker with lots of agents exactly needs.
Yeah.
Because that's the challenge that we run into Vyral Marketing so much, is I get the emails of all my agents, but who's it coming from? And you have it from each agent going out to their own list, which Dobbin put together. And originally, I think you had just a full-time staff member literally copying and pasting 40 different emails into 40 different accounts.
Exactly what they were doing, yeah. And they had to create a template. Then they had to merge that with, they had to drop the content into a template, and then they had to attach that to a database and send it. Then they had to do agent number 2, agent number 3. It took 2 days. It took 2 days to do it.
And now you said you have all that automated. You figure out how to automate all that, Dobbin?
Yes, absolutely.
That's incredible.
Once the content is written, it takes Sarah, 30 minutes to put it together now?
Maximum. I mean, if I've got a lot of crazy links and I'm getting ready to do something, I'm going to build a unique campaign, then it's going to take her a little bit time. But if I just create a newsletter and have it link into 1 or 2 things, 30 minutes or less, and it's out the door, and and thousands and thousands of people are getting it branded individually based on the agent that's been communicating with them over the years.
I have a quick question. So one thing that when people are reaching out to me and they know that I work with Greg, and one of the things that they're always asking me is, first of all, what is Greg doing? And they want to know all the details. But the thing that the misconception that real estate professionals have is, Greg, that you do everything in Infusionsoft, which absolutely isn't the case. You probably have more automation than anybody I know in real estate, in the real estate profession, but a lot of aspects of your business are not done in Infusionsoft. As an example, one thing I get asked to develop a lot is transaction management campaigns for real estate professionals, but you have chosen not to have me develop one of those for you because you have specific reasons behind that. I don't expect you to go into detail of all this because we don't have a lot of time left, but I just wanted to speak to that because I know there's a lot of real estate professionals online with us right now, and this is like a hot topic with them, is, you know, multi-system issues and wanting to pull everything into a singular system. I don't know of a singular system that can do everything in real estate. You probably come as close to it as you can get, but I'd like to hear a little bit about that if you could.
Yeah, well, I guess one of the things that I look at is the components. Let's just take transaction management. The components that's required to fully automate transaction management. There's so many of them, and it varies from agent to agent and market to market. Okay, so we're an attorney state, and some people don't use attorneys for closings. They're a title state. You know, some people have an internal closing department. Some agents close individually. So when you look at all the different ways that people, you know, do their closings, I think there's every single person. It's unique to every single person. So I didn't like that. Okay, I didn't like that. If I was going to build out something, because you take dotloop, for example, and there's other companies out there that are doing transaction management softwares. Forgive me, I don't know who they are, but they've spent millions of dollars to get theirs right. Okay, and a lot of people who use them are still complaining that the $1 million or $2 million or $3 million that they spent to get it right, they're still complaining that it's not right. So then I started to think about it and said, okay, well, if they spent millions, how much am I going to have to spend to get it right? And then I started to realize that one advantage to the out-of-box systems is when things change, they change them and then just give a new version. But if something changes internally in my company's and the way that we process a transaction at anywhere in the chain, whether it's our listing process, our communication to attorneys and lenders, our communication to the consumer, all the way to reductions, withdrawals, expireds. When you look at all the different parts of the life of the transaction, there's so many things that we're constantly changing internally. And I knew that if we set up a system and then I changed the way I did something in the closing department, then I knew that that was going to be much more difficult for you to actually change. We were going to have to break down the system and rebuild it all the time, versus just when it comes to automating the communication that I'm doing in these campaigns. If I want to change the way I communicate, I change an email here, I change a PDF, I don't really have to change everything. But when we're dealing with transaction management, it's kind of like having 1,000 dominoes. We can set up those 1,000 dominoes perfectly fine and click it over and see them fall beautifully, right, in sequence. But I know what's going to happen. I'm going to go in and say, you know what, I want to change this domino, and this domino, and the first time that I do that, it's going to throw everything off, and we're going to have to rebuild a big portion of the system. Now, I could be wrong, okay, but I'm looking at the big boys who are doing this already. I'm looking at the agents and how much they're complaining about the big boy systems that are out there, spent millions, and I'm thinking, I'm not going to get in competition with them. I will just go ahead and use them. And my frustrations with them, sometimes they appear, but then I go to bed at night and I said, if I'm frustrated with them, I can't imagine how frustrated I would be with my own system, as well as how frustrated my agents would be with my system. And that was it. I just said, I think the risks are too high. And I think it's going to be an ongoing thing that people are going to have to build over and over and over again. It's just that's a little bit more. Even though we're talking automation here, I'm not a technical guy. This is not, my business is not getting in and building programs. I think that's the closest thing to building a program that a real estate agent can get to, and I didn't want to complicate things.
We got some.
I hope that helps. I mean,
Yeah.
Actually, that's a much better answer than Dob could ever expect to get from that.
okay.
By the way, for anyone who's watching, we do have a Q&A open, so just go ahead and ask a question here on the right. I know there's a little bit of a delay, but feel free to ask questions here for the last 6 minutes. I think this is a good time for you, Dobbin, to kind of wrap things up and just kind of share even more while we're waiting for some questions to come in. What is Greg doing to be successful that your clients need to know, or anyone who's watching this needs to know, be more like Greg?
Well, I would say that the attribute that I would say is directly connected with the success is mindset. And so ultimately, Greg is a clear and progressive thinker that understands his business, what he's doing, and he's able to describe to me his vision in regards to a lot of different things. We've talked about hundreds of different projects, not only relating to real estate, but other things. And really, it's having the mindset of, when in dealing with business, with life cycle marketing. And so all of this automation, and we should do a whole series on just life cycle marketing, is based on the principles of life cycle marketing. So Greg understands that in depth, and ultimately, with each segment of business, we break things down, we break them down simply, and we attack them with a plan. It's not like, here, Dobbin, here's 150 different things I want to do. It's more like, hey, Dobbin, let's refine this FSBO campaign, and let's do this, and let's have the people going through it have this experience, this experience. So we're able to break things down into specifics and have realistic goals, and we do it one piece at a time, and we've been doing this for years. And that's why he has such a massive stuff, is that if you start something that's, you know, multifaceted, you get sidetracked. We stay focused, we complete one thing after another, and you know what? Over a period of time, you have an amazing collection of tools to work from in these systems. So, you know, that's really nothing. I guess it gets complicated, but the spirit of what we do isn't complicated. It's really just working well together as two professionals.
Yeah.
Good. Lisa True, she's on the Hangout. How you doing, Lisa? I think we kind of answered this a little bit earlier, but with tags, maybe go a little bit deeper if there's anything left out on tags, Greg. Is with tags, how do you use them? You know, obviously you aren't triggering different campaigns each time.
No, I'm not necessarily triggering different campaigns each time. I mean, that obviously we could do that also, and we are doing some of that. But, you know, probably the most basic way that I'll use it, and it also produces some of the biggest return, is when, you know, an agent in my office says, man, I've got this buyer. They're ready to go. They're fully qualified. They've got cash. They're ready to write an offer. There's just no properties on the market right now that are in this building or that are in this community. And then they'll give me a specific. It's a 3-bedroom on the golf course, you know. And so from right there, just like so quickly, we can just go to the Infusionsoft database and then send a "we have a buyer" email to all people that are tagged with that criteria. So it's the speed of being able to get that message out to 50 people that have that exact property that that buyer wants. And you know, it's things like that you know, we'll use tags in the most simple ways as that produces a huge return. And then we're double-ending, you know, transactions because of it.
That's great.
Also, all the campaigns are broken down to where we're tagging the specific interests and PDFs and videos that people are going to, so we're able to actually run metrics on the success of different content within our campaigns. So we're able to see over the long haul, you know, how many people that have gone through this campaign have engaged in this specific content, and we do that by tags. So there's a lot of different things that are going on behind the scenes in Infusionsoft that we're utilizing it.
Tracy asks, Greg, how hard is this to implement? Is it for a single agent that isn't tech savvy?
Well, listen, I have never done anything inside of Infusionsoft personally. Okay, so the reality is this: it's really easy. Now, people are sitting here saying, "Oh my gosh, Infusionsoft's not easy." It's because you got involved. It's actually really easy. Dobbin will set it all up, and you just let it go, and it'll work on its own. Now, when you start coming in and saying, "Okay, I want to be a programmer, and I want to start customizing this, and I want to add this, and I want to add that," then things there's a learning curve. There's no question about it. But to actually get started and having content already, preloaded and start seeing results, that's pretty easy. It's just after that when you start to see, oh wow, all these cool things that can be done, and then you go inside your application and try to figure it out. I will tell you, it's not the easiest for those that are trying to create it all on their own and customize it. And that's, that it is what it is. So we want to be honest. At the same token, the fact that it's not that easy is a barrier of entry for a lot of realtors, and a lot of realtors stay away from it. So, the people who are willing to go ahead and spend a little bit of time, invest some time in learning the system, the rewards on the backside are huge. It's just, to me, there's no system that's ever going to provide or has ever provided the monetary returns as this system. But it also took a little time. Now, for me, I just hired Dobbin. So I hired him, and here's the content, and he programmed it all for me. So it's been very easy for me because all I'm doing is thinking of what's next. I'm not thinking about how to actually implement it.
Great.
I hope I answered the question.
We got one more question. Let me get one more question here.
Could I share one thing, Frank, to her? It's, one thing is that myself and my team are available to answer questions, and I'm not talking about this isn't a come hire Dobbin type of thing. We talk to real estate professionals on a daily basis, and not everybody winds up working with us, but we're really eager to speak to you, hear about where you're at, and then to provide you with some advice. So reach out to me and my team. We're happy to speak with you and help to guide you. That's absolutely a fact.
Great. So one last question. We'll wrap this up. This is a great question from Mark Oden. I work condos on the beach in the Florida-Alabama border. I have an opportunity to refer leads to other agents. Would you explain briefly how the referral campaign works to understand the awesomeness of it?
The referral campaign that I'm referring to, that Dobbin mentioned, that is an outgoing educational campaign that I have put realtors that are not in my real estate market, I have put them in. And the value of the campaign is I'm giving them coaching tips, unsolicited. I'm not selling anything. I'm not a coach. I only coach agents in my own company, but I'm actually giving coaching tips and a lot of videos, a lot of PDFs on things that I've learned over the years as my value, given to them. And then, of course, I'm saying, hey, just remember me. I'm in Myrtle Beach. So, if you ever have, or Charleston, if you ever have anyone thinking about moving to these two markets, please, send your referrals my way. So I'm just out there just kind of giving education to realtors in hopes that I'm going to get referrals in return, and I do get quite a bit of referrals. So it's really more of a contribution and a reciprocity type of campaign. Now, to set up a campaign with Infusionsoft, I could easily, and Dobbin and I have actually discussed this, we don't have this campaign, but it wouldn't be hard. If you're sending outgoing referrals, and you could send them through your Infusionsoft account, and then you could set up a campaign to communicate and follow up and track the the results of that referral. That could be easily done.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have. This is an incredible hangout, and Greg, thank you again for all the wonderful information you shared. And Dobbin, thanks for turning that screen around and showing us a little bit about how that back end of that Infusionsoft works. That was very fascinating. And you too, thank you for attending. So you can trust us to keep these educational and valuable, which I hope you found here today. And I recommend you subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Google+. We plan on bringing you one of these hangouts every single month, and they're going to be in all industries. So we're going to interview people in all industries that are using marketing automation to a high level to grow their business. And we plan on doing these, like I said, about once a month. So thank you for coming. And like I said, like Dobbin said before, If you have any interest and have some more of those cost-based questions that were asked over here that I skipped over, just contact Dobbin and the guys over at Get You Wired will be able to help you out. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you, Frank.